Hello, I'm Elaine Smith, the Artistic Director of the Clamour Theater Company. We are holding these creative conversations with playwrights, with actors, with directors, so that you can find out more about Clamour Theater and about the artists who work with us. Welcome to this edition of a Clamour Creative Conversation. Today, we're talking with playwright Nick Malakhow, who's joining us for Clay and Water 2021, our third annual Playwrights Retreat with his play Affinity Lunch Minutes. So welcome, Nick. It's really great to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little about, where you're from, about your background, whatever you'd like us to know.
I grew up in northeastern New Jersey, pretty close to New York City. Went to undergrad in the greater Philadelphia area and stuck around there for about a decade after graduating, and then moved up to Boston to go to grad school, and I'm currently living and working here. So that's geographically what my life has been. But I guess just a little bit about my journey as a writer and my life as a playwright. So I've definitely always been interested in writing. I hand wrote my first 100-page horror novel in 6th grade that I still have. And throughout high school, I didn't go to summer camp. I spent my summers at creative writing programs. And then in undergrad, I spent my English major also dabbling in a whole bunch of different creative writing genres. And it was really in undergrad that I found that the way that I build stories and worlds best was through dialogue, after taking a couple of playwriting classes. After graduating undergrad, I really focused on my life as a teacher for 10 years. I teach English and theater to middle and high school students, and I have for the 15 or so years since I graduated college. In that first 10 years, like I said, I really focused on teaching, and writing was more or less a side hobby. I left that job to go to grad school for theater ed after 10 years. And at that school, I took, as part of my theater ed masters, I took actually a theater literature class that really blasted open my idea of what stories could be centered in theater. So the focus of that class was a syllabus full of contemporary plays from the past 10 years whose characters specifically lived at unique identity crossroads. And this was kind of a light bulb moment for me, that all my life as a multiracial person, as a queer person, that I'd been so enmeshed in and kind of beholden to universal narratives that are actually just white stories. So I'm a lover of small slice of life, kind of universal as universal in their specificity kind of stories. And this class was really the first time that I made the connection that these narratives were not really race or identity neutral stories. They were white narratives, and that I could craft similar kinds of stories, but populate them with people who normally don't get these kinds of stories told about them. So that was about 5 years ago. And that's really when playwriting as an interest reignited for me and went from a hobby to more part of my constant artistic practice and profession. And when I started submitting to things and getting opportunities and really developing the works and writing the works that I was interested in writing.
Great. That's very interesting. Thank you. So why don't you also tell us a little bit about the play that you're bringing without giving away the ending or anything, if you would?
Sure. So Affinity Lunch Minutes takes place in a small private Quaker school, fictional Quaker school, and it centers around Ben and Jasmine, who are the two only Black teachers at the school. Ben, he is the diversity, equity, and inclusion dean. He is a Quaker himself. He went to the school, and by his colleagues and the community at large, he's seen as kind of a measured and agreeable person. Jasmine, his colleague, is a little bit more of a firebrand, a little bit more of someone who kind of wants to stir the pot. And so those are the two central characters. And there are two events that I think really set in motion the play. The first happens before the action of the play. There's a discipline incident that has just happened involving 4 boys. 3 of the boys who are white were suspended, and then the one black boy who was involved was expelled for what was a lesser offense, really. And then the second event that happens shortly after the start of the play, there's a white student stands up during the weekly Quaker meeting for worship and delivers a message about the incident that's kind of tone deaf and actually instigates an altercation between him and Jasmine. And so those two events and how Ben and Jasmine approach what's happening at their school really shakes up their relationship as colleagues and the equilibrium that they have. And that's kind of the setup to the piece, without giving away too much.
Okay, great. I've read the play, obviously, and it's going to change as he works on it, but y'all don't want to miss it. It's really an interesting piece. So we're looking forward to hearing it. So how did you hear about Clay and Water, and what made you decide to apply?
Yeah. So I think any playwright knows a lot of life is spent foraging online for development ops and submission opportunities. So the Clamour's retreat I stumbled upon through through an online database of submission opportunities, and a couple things really excited me about it. Just first off, it's positioning as a retreat, not just okay, we're going to do a reading of your play, but the emphasis seemed to me on getting together a group of playwrights and encouraging and promoting fellowship between them and connection between them. So it's not just kind of playwrights working in their own little silos and then, there are these presentations and then, that's it. I was also excited because just because of the opportunity to have kind of a bookended experience. So have kind of an initial read, work with a dramaturg, and then have the space and time to rewrite before the actual public presentation of it.
Great.
And the other thing, I guess, also just seeing the connection with students, seeing that there was an element of visiting and talking to students. I'm a full-time teacher, so I think of myself equally as a writer and an educator, and I think I'm going to be a career teacher for the rest of my life, perhaps. So anything that involves interfacing with students is definitely wonderful in my eye.
Great. Yeah, we've done that for the other 2 retreats. This is our 3rd one, and it's always really fun and interesting, and you'll be great at it as a teacher. So that'll be great. What do you think that you might get out of working with the dramaturg and meeting the other playwrights?
Yeah. Well, I think that in terms of meeting with the playwrights and having this kind of cohort of people to work with, I think obviously for obvious reasons, it's easy to feel very off in your own little corner and kind of sequestered away from other artists these days, the past year or so, for example.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, just the opportunity to use technology to create fellowship during this time is something that appeals to me. I mean, from a basic standpoint, I just haven't had much. I've done a lot of work in the past year with companies to do some digital readings. It was actually a pretty fruitful year for me in terms of that because of, I guess, increased accessibility to certain companies. But I actually haven't had the experience to be kind of in the room, real or virtual, with other playwrights and checking in with each other just about our current practice, our emotional state of mind, what creating in the world is like right now. So I'm really looking forward to that because I haven't had that outlet recently.
Yeah, that's great. We have heard from previous retreat participants that that's one of the things they find most valuable. So, and they've all miraculously, everybody's gotten along really well every time. So that's great. So tell me a little bit, do you have a favorite play of your own? I know the standard answer to that is whatever the one is that I'm working on right now, but
Sure. No, I love all my plays dearly, of course, in their own special way. But I would say that one play that to me feels the most complete and the most aesthetically defined in my eye as it is now is this play I've written called A Picture of Two Boys. That's had a couple of readings and development opportunities, hasn't been produced yet. And it's a small two-character observational piece that takes place on a dock that examines the relationship of these two boys, one Black, one Latino, who live in a small, rural, predominantly white town. And the first half of the piece is them as teenagers, and one of them is trying to build up the courage to tell the other one that he's trying to graduate high school early and get out of what feels like this hostile environment and essentially abandon his friend. So he's nervous about saying that. And then the second half of the play is them 10 years later reuniting in the same place after not having spoken to each other since that first meeting. So it's the kind of setting and circumstances feel pretty straightforward and it's pretty simple. But there's also this shared trauma, which I guess I won't reveal, that underlies and really haunts both sections of the play and is kind of at the meat of it.
yeah.
So like I said, I think from an aesthetic standpoint and from a character, how much I know these characters, I feel like I'm excited to see that one produced someday soon, hopefully.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, it's always hard to get a production. I know I'm a playwright myself and it's the struggle, but it sounds interesting and I think it sounds like it should have some good opportunities. So I look forward to hearing about that as we go ahead. Do you have any like favorite playwrights or plays that you've seen recently or read recently, or not even recently, but just that are really important to you and have influenced you in any way?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was really glad to hear that you were going to ask this question, actually. It is my favorite question. I love plays, I love new plays. So, on New Play Exchange, for about the past 2 years or so, I've really made it my daily mission to read at least one full length play per day and recommend one full length play per day and amplify that playwright. Um, Again throughout the past couple of years. So I read a lot. I have about 830 recommendations of mostly full-length plays now on New Play Exchange.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
So I have a lot of playwrights that I love and that influence me a lot. I really admire and definitely gravitate towards playwrights who write complex, small, nuanced pieces. Uh, Typically that center intersectionally rich characters, specifically queer people of color. So really, not plays that are exactly like my plays, but plays that sort of circle around the same interests, right?
Yeah.
There are three playwrights that come to mind from New Play Exchange. Gina Femia is one that comes to mind, an extremely prolific playwright. There's one play of hers in particular, Alondra, that's about teens who live in Coney Island that come together and wrestle. It's a really beautiful coming of age story, again with just really richly detailed and nuanced characters and just told so subtly and gently, while also being very theatrical. But honestly, I don't know. She's very prolific. So I think she has, I feel like there are 30 something plays she has on New Play Exchange. And I will read a new one as soon as I see that she has one. Another playwright, Rachel Lynette, comes to mind. Also a very prolific, wonderful playwright. Her piece, You Are Mine, which is about two characters planning a funeral for their shared partner. After they haven't met each other yet, and it's just a beautiful, again, nuanced, small exploration of loneliness and grieving and intimacy. But also Rachel has a ton of plays, and again, whenever she posts a new one, I excitedly download it and read it. And then Andrew Rosendorf has also a play on New Play Exchange called One Shot. That's about the friendship and the romance between these two boys who work at a video store, and just the way their lives are differently impacted by white privilege and prejudice and art. And again, in case you can't sort of tell the consistent themes, small, nuanced, clear-eyed towards the intersectional identities of its characters. And it's just beautifully done. So those are kind of three that really jump to mind. But like I said, 830 recommendations. So
Yeah.
I have a lot more that I
Yeah,
could.
you have a lot. We could have a whole list. We may ask you for a list.
Yeah.
I'm making notes and I'm gonna go read some things. So that's great. Nick, we're really glad you accepted the offer to come to the retreat, and we're really looking forward to having you there. And I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and letting our audience get to know something about you. And we're all looking forward to hearing Affinity Lunch Minutes read at a date and time still to be determined, but it's going to be between Thursday, February the 18th and Sunday, February the 21st. So everybody needs to check the Clamour website to find the exact date when we're ready and be there. So thank you and have a really great day.
Great. Thank you so much.